Hey, what's up, gamers? Welcome to the Safe File Podcast, where every gaming character, every gamer has an origin story to tell. I'm your host, Gold Lion, and today's guest, man, I'm excited for him to be here. He's a good friend of mine. He has an impressive career in the gaming industry. He's an esports consultant and a travel hotel industry advisor. He's a creator of Central Texas' first online esports gaming league for Dota 2, esports commentator for Overwatch and Dota 2 tournaments, conducted on-camera interviews with big industry names, one being Cloud9's CSGO 2016 roster. He has helped fill convention centers with big clients such as DreamHack, hosted the first ever VR competition on the DreamHack main stage, co-founder and former CTO of an esports organization named Guardian Gaming, a U.S. Army veteran serving his 6-year term as a computer security specialist. He's a strong believer that gaming can be a force of good and positivity to the world. For him, it's never been solely about the game. It's about being of service to others. Gamers, I humbly introduce you the vanguard for gaming and esports and everything else in between, Mr. Peter Perez. What's up, Peter?
Yeah, what's up, man?
Chilling, man. Chilling, man. Hey, real quick, from one vet to another, thank you for your service, my friend.
Thank you for your service. I
All
learned
right.
it from watching you, man.
Chill. You actually got in. When did you get into the Army?
2003.
Wow, that's.
It's been a while. Yeah, I've been given consideration of going back. Man, the climate's changed. I feel like the military is a whole different world right now. They've got esports teams within the Army and the Navy.
I know,
They're
right?
competing at Rainbow Six. They've got a deal with E-League in Atlanta, and that's exciting.
That's definitely something worth talking about later. I like that.
It is, yeah. They've got show matches going on. But anyway, we'll go into some of that.
For sure. All right, so first question. Explain your first experience with gaming.
First experience with gaming is probably a Nintendo with Mario and Duck Hunt. I remember my aunt and uncle, when I grew up, my mom had just left California when I was 3 years old. She left California to go move back with her parents because my mom and dad, they didn't work out. So my brother and I have a younger brother, 2.5 years younger than me. We moved back into kind of a small town called Brewerton, New York, just north of Syracuse, about 17 miles. And I remember my aunt and uncle bought a Nintendo and they locked it up tight. They had it behind 2 locked doors inside their bedroom. And one day I remember them leaving it all unlocked. I snuck in there, powered it on, found the Duck Hunt light gun, and I was just click, hitting the screen, played myself a little Mario. I was probably about 4 years old or 5 years old at the time. And then, my father ended up sending my brother and I our own Nintendo console in the mail. And then, from then it was on. It was on, brother. It was playing Battletoads, Wizards and Warriors.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, you're naming these games hella nostalgic. I haven't heard these titles in a long time.
My brother was into NBA Jam. Well, that came out. That was a later console. But if there's any reason why I have such an affinity for gaming and what it's going to be and where it's going to go, then all of that started then.
Wow, that's awesome, dude. So you started. So why did they lock it up though? Initially,
they locked it up because it at that point, the price point was like $400 or $500 to get a Nintendo at that time. So I mean, they knew little kids were in the house and they didn't want anybody to use it unless it was supervised, that's fair, right? You don't want little kids getting at high dollar value items like that.
Dang, man, that's dope. All right, so the first segment we're going to get into is character creation. Okay, so it's a little bit of background in your life. So normally I ask gamers that are on the show, what is their gamer tag? But I introduced you as just Peter Perez. So what was your gamer tag in the gaming industry, and why did you choose that gamer tag?
I've had multiple gamer tags throughout kind of like playing games. But the one that kind of stuck with me was RBE Pete. Was a community active. RBE Pete. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that was, and I realized there was way too many, it was so long to say. It was just really inconvenient. Because RBEP, there's just way too much. I needed something that was way simpler. So lately, I've just been going by, Perez, Prez, which is my last name minus one E. But it's kind of a callback to the Army. People call me Perez, Perez. Rarely did they call me Pete. Even in high school, they called me Perez. And I was like, you know what? I'll just kind of go back to my roots a little bit on my gamer tag. So I've been changing it up here and there. And I'm not trying to go pro. I never wanted to be a pro player. I always wanted to be a support system and a lifeline for people who wanted to go pro, because I realized, the lifespan of a pro gamer on average is anywhere between, 3 to 4 years. And, that's such a hard thing to accomplish unless you're given 40 to 60 plus hours a week into practice and competition. And I'm a father of 2 kids, and I'm married. And when I got out of the Army, you got to get back into work. And so, I just didn't have the ability to sit down and give competitive gaming my full attention. So I realized, like, okay, there's an opportunity here to create these competitions and to create more infrastructure for players to play, because there were millions of players out there, but there wasn't a lot of places for them to play. So I found, there was a problem that needed to be solved. And here in Austin, that's, where things kicked off. Back in 2013 is when I, produced my first online league for Dota 2 with a bunch of Texas Dota 2 players. And then inevitably that moved into LAN tournaments. And then DreamHack came into town, and they discovered that I was doing that. And, they pulled me in to help gain access to those gamers, plus the rest of the gaming community at large within the Texas area.
Wow. So
that answers your question on the gamer tag, and then some. But
so why Prez? Like, how did that? Like, you mentioned they've been calling you that, but why Prez? How did that get brought up?
Well, it was actually a few months ago when I needed something more truncated, right? I needed something that, didn't have like so many syllables, right? I wanted to make it, because people would start asking me like, well, what the hell does RBE stand for? And then I'd have to go into that history on, my early community activist days when I was a big proponent of a resource-based economy, as proposed by a man named Jacques Fresco, who just died a few years ago at the age of 103 or 102. And he lives in Venus, Florida, and he's the founder of an organization called Venus Project, which essentially wants to, move humanity more towards what Star Trek essentially is, where, the monetary system, we've surpassed it. No one needs money anymore, and resource acquisition, like basically if we were to take an audit of all the resources on the planet, we would manage those resources in an intelligent way to make sure that everybody has their needs met. So that comes with a lot of complications. Obviously, in the current political landscape and current economics, like, it doesn't mesh. People can't imagine a post-monetary world living in a monetary world, right? And then that brings up all kinds of conversations about the banking system and how money is created. And again, that's just a whole can of worms that I didn't feel like I wanted to bring into the gaming world, other than my gamer tag. And then I surprisingly I ran into quite a few people who were also heard of a resource-based economy, like, Sam Gonzalez. Like, I don't know if you realize it, but when he met me and found out my kids heard him say, RBE, and he asked them, you know what it is? And my kids are educating him on it. And he's like, what? And where'd you guys learn this? And I was like, oh, my dad, and then as soon as I came into work that day, he's like, Pete, I want to shake your hand. I'm like, you're the first person I've met in person that is also, aware of this post-monetary idea. And, that's as beautiful as that is, it's just not a realistic thing for us to do right now, because it's like essentially the cart is pulling the horse, right? We can't try to move to a post-monetary world when we have only a minority of the population, of the global population, actually have, proper, good, clean drinking water, a roof over their head, and a support system like a family or a tribe or a community. And like that's what has to happen first. Like we can't just lift up a small segment of the global population without inevitably trying to find a way to bring everyone else up at the same time. So humanity has to go through that progression. And I think gamification, I think gaming is a great way to supersede political boundaries, language boundaries, any ideological differences, religious differences that people have. And I think gaming is one of the great unifiers of the human family because it is rooted in play. And one way to live your life joyfully is to be involved in play. And if you're doing something fun, it doesn't feel like work. So that's why gaming is attracting so many people, because it doesn't feel like work. It doesn't feel, that you need to walk away from it and feel exhausted and drained from it. Like, yeah, some people get burned out, but that's probably because they just need to go to sleep. But gaming's such an easy thing for people to find relatability to, because this isn't purely just video games we're talking about. We're talking about tabletop games, card games, dice games, board games. This kind of reminds me of a story that I heard from a woman named Jane McGonigal, who wrote a book called Super Better. And she tells of a story of one of the earliest games that were ever played was a prehistoric tribe of people that what they found is that they were going through a severe famine. And these people would have died had it not been for a dice game that they invented to play with everyone in this tribe in order to overcome their hunger and overcome like the I guess the dread and the worry that they were going to go through because they didn't have any food available to them. So they extended their life expectancy, or at least they extended the time at which that they didn't need food they doubled it essentially, because they focused on playing games rather than being worried about where their next meal was going to come from. So it was fascinating to hear the story, and that games have always been a part of humanity all the way back to prehistoric times. Before we have modern man recording and etching in stone. These stone tablets of what is happening in history. Games have been involved, since the beginning of time. So we can't ignore the power of games, the power of gaming, and building camaraderie and building community, and it's right there in our history.
Wow, that's actually a really good story. I mean, that makes a lot of sense, because with that going on, like, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. Gaming can be used as an outlet for whatever's going on. So, like, yeah, dude, damn. You got me speechless right now. That story, like, it makes a hell of a lot of sense and it's definitely relatable to what's going on today, man. And it's the gaming industry is very underestimated right now. Wow, man. So where are you from?
I was born in Southern California. I lived there for about 3 years with my parents, and then they split, moved to Central New York for all through elementary, middle, high school. Left New York State after I tried college. College wasn't for me. I was in party mode. I was in socialite mode. I couldn't focus on my studies. I wasn't getting anything done. I was getting C's and B's in all my classes, even though I was barely ever there. Had I been there, probably would have aced everything and was on a fast track through college. That would have been easy. I graduated at high school at 17, so I was kind of ahead of the curve. And that simply because my birthday is in September, so everybody was older than me. I always had older friends growing up, so I felt like I was surrounded by a lot of good influences and positive influences in my life. But I realized that being in New York and being surrounded by, friends and family that were just doing the daily grind, and they'd go to work, they'd come home, they'd be tired, and they'd play just as hard as they worked. But that play came in the form of either booze or gambling or just smoking weed and just party animals.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized like that wasn't the lifestyle that I wanted. And at a real low point in my life, I got a phone call from an Army recruiter, and they, were trying to. It was really bizarre. I look back at this, and I really caution people who were approached by our like any military recruiter, where they try to appeal to your like base human needs as a sexual creature, right? You're gonna meet all these girls. You're gonna go overseas. You're just gonna have to pick the litter, man. You're gonna be in uniform, and oh, but what about my job? Well, forget about your job. Don't worry about that. You're gonna have a good time no matter where you are. And I felt like there was a lot of misleading information that I was getting from the recruiter, but I still ended up enlisting. Kind of ignored all of that. I was a Boy Scout, and I had taken the PT test and was able to come in as an E2 rather than an E1.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had that boost in rank, enlisted, ended up going to basic training in Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and then went to Fort Gordon, Georgia, where I had my AIT and was trained on how to be a network switch administrator, which is basically maintaining like secure communications for the military. And then went to my first deployment in South Korea, where I ended up meeting my wife, who's from Florence, Texas, but grew up in Hawaii, and she had graduated college and went to South Korea to teach English as a second language. And it was fascinating that, like I'm looking for friends to meet on MySpace and happened to find her in Seoul. And I'm like, hey, I sent her a message, and I was like, girl, you got it going on. Like, look at whatever you're doing it right. And so it was just so terrible, and the worst pickup lines ever, but it worked. And she wanted to hang out, and I brought all my buddies down to Seoul, Korea. We ended up meeting, and by New Year's, we were a couple, and 3 months into it, we were pregnant with our first kid. And Hazel, we tell everybody that she's made in Korea, which is absolutely true.
Made in Korea.
So yeah, I have ambitions to try to go back to Korea. It would be amazing to kind of go through that path. Now that I have two children, they're 14 and 11 now, and they're very much involved in gaming, and like love every aspect of it, and have a future in gaming in some capacity. Don't know what that looks like, but I'm sure they'll come up with that on their own. But yeah, it's the journey inevitably led me back here to Texas, because I either had a choice of either living with my immediate family up in New York, or being here in Texas with her family, and it was an ezy decision. Texas has incredibly mild winters. I mean, it's December right now, and I'm chilling on this beautiful Texas hill country. And I mean, I'd go up the hill, but the wind is too strong, and it'd be killing the microphone right now.
Yeah,
so it just
definitely
wouldn't work. But maybe I'll go up there, and we'll catch a little bit of it just for the podcast. So you can layer that in or something. But anyway, it's just, Texas is a beautiful place. I'm glad I ended up here, and it's presented a lot of opportunity for me.
Of course. And for anybody that's from the Midwest or up north, which I am, and he is, if you guys are tired of the snow, please come to Texas.
Just come to Texas.
Just come to Texas. You'll be great. You'd be awesome.
I mean, everybody from California is coming over here for good reason.
I noticed that, but then a lot of people from Texas is going to California, which is weird.
Well, yeah, I think that's a lot of the Silicon Valley types that are heading over there. Yeah, I think that's what's happening. Because if you live in California, what you can get for one house, what it costs to get a house over there, you're starting at almost $500,000. And you come here to Texas, you get two houses for $500,000, and twice as much land, twice as much square footage. I mean, if you like a big house. I mean, I'm a tiny house kind of guy. I like tiny living because I don't like accumulating stuff. I like to have a short list of inventory of everything that I own, and I'm just not a person of excess. So when I look at the esports world, and this is kind of going off topic a little bit, but there's a lot of excess, right? There's a lot of waste. There's a lot of things that just get thrown in the garbage, right? Especially events like DreamHack or any convention for that matter. The Comic-Con or E3, like there's just so much waste that goes into these events. And while I'm not trying to be a champion of any of that, but it'd be nice to play smarter and game smarter and be a smarter entrepreneur about this, and really focus on a conscious way of entertaining people and also being good stewards for the planet.
Yeah. Well, when you say waste at these conventions, what exactly are they wasting?
There's a lot of merchandise that ends up getting purchased that doesn't fully get out to the public, then ends up in a garbage can. There's a lot of like paper, plastic, like all that stuff accumulates, and there isn't really a proper way of handling all of that waste that goes into it. Plus, what happens is, like when you get volunteers for these events, often the volunteers will stay as long as they tolerate, and then they just end up going home. So on day 3, when you're hoping that you have 100% retention of all your volunteers, 25% of them decided they wanted to go home because there's no obligation for them to stay. They're volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And they just walk away, and you can't force them to stay longer than they or have the energy to do so. And so that creates a burden on the existing staff, and so I'll be cut, right? A lot of things are just going to end up getting thrown in the trash. And it's not. This really doesn't even need to be a big issue to discuss. But I'm kind of one of those guys where I look at these events and I'm like, how can we really make this leveled up beyond any other event that has been created before? And I feel like gamers are smart. They're very intelligent people.
Mm-hmm.
They love solving problems. They love completing the quest. They love going on that journey, and they need quest mates, right? We need leaders. We need our battles, right? We need people by our side to help, give us that extra boost of energy to really fulfill that mission. So gaming, I feel like we can do amazing things through the element of entertaining people through play and through gamification. And that's just one thing I'd like to see improve in the space. However, that doesn't necessarily produce dollar signs unless you find a way to minimize the amount of stuff that needs to be purchased, but rather provide experience that people are willing to pay for, which I think I've solved that problem in one way or another through putting efforts in the Esports Combine.
That'd definitely be a hell of a way to, what is that, like somebody creating something, some kind of organization that deals with waste.
We're dealing with digital content, right?
Yeah.
And so rather than just give people merch to take home, although I do love to get a sweater, t-shirt, hat, I love to get all the gear, but side trinkets and tchotchkes, that I feel like digital content could go a lot further, that could hold on to value a little bit longer, in that, if it's a limited release, you've got something there. I mean, skins for video games are holding value, and that was a market that skeptics didn't think was going to go anywhere, much like when they think about blockchain and digital currencies, right? Anything can have value if it's in limited supply and there are people that find it valuable to their personal desires. And so
if there's a fulfillment in the market. Yes,
absolutely.
All right, so we're back here at the podcast. Pete's phone died, so there's a little fast forward 10 minutes later. Poor guy had to run back to his car. Power, man. Got come prepared. It's all good though. You gotta love technology. You love to hate it, right? You hate to love it. I mean,
being a gamer, man, internet and power. Without it, I have to play a board game.
Yeah. Oof. Exactly. All right. So, Dan, where did we leave off?
We were going into, I guess, just some ways to level up the whole gaming experience. And then I thought the whole waste issue was going to be something that we're going to see throughout lots of different events. And then I started talking about the Esports Combine. I mentioned that. I don't know. We can go into that if you'd like.
Esports Combine. I mean, if you feel like you want to talk about it, let's go ahead and talk about it. You want to get it off the chest.
All I want to say is I want to give a shout out to Daniel Ivars. He approached me and had this idea of wanting to kind of imitate what the NFL Combine and NBA Combine were doing, and finding a path for pro players from the amateur circuit to the pro scene, giving them, a clear path on how they can get in front of these pro teams and showcase not only their talent, but the metrics of how they play as a gamer. Watching biometrics, obviously health is going to come into play on that one, their performance, not just with existing games, but with new gaming titles that they've never played before. I want a well-rounded player. I don't just want one player that's badass in just one game, right? I want a player that's cohesive, not just as a team player, but also as a good performer in-game, and they're teachable. I think having somebody who is teachable and flexible and willing to accommodate kind of all kinds of scenarios and challenges is kind of the dream, I think, for some of these pro teams, and the Esports Combine could be a way to do that. And there's already organizations that are out there trying to build this competitive space that also has a fast track for players to showcase their talent and be presented, put in front of these pro teams, and chance to be selected, to be signed on and earn a salary playing as a professional gamer. And so it's under development. The request for proposal has been made, and we've been shopping it around to different convention centers, and obviously looking into different partners that can help fill all those gaps in fulfilling the Combine mission. And I'm already seeing people that I've talked to making steps into moving in that direction. And so it's a very appealing and attractive way, and I feel like it's an inevitable direction for esports, considering that the NFL and NBA are already scouting at these combines to try to find the next top players. So it'll just be a matter of time within the next few years, if not, me and my team launch something, because I do know, DreamHack is interested in wanting to put something together. That's still to be determined. There's no confirmation on that yet. In fact, I couldn't even say if there was. But what I will say is that it's nice to see that other people are making those steps towards a combine. Again, I'm not looking out for myself here on this one. I'm not just all out for sole benefit. I feel like that this esports world is really only going to grow when we have people that are allowing this information to flow freely. I'm not saying that we disclose all the deals that we make and the numbers that are behind that, but at least give people the idea, because if they feel the initiative and they feel the energy coming from other people, that they're passionate about the collective esports market, then inevitably they're going to reach out a hand and say, hey, I appreciate your inspiration, come on board, come help us really fine tune this vision and figure out what it looks like. So yeah, shout out to Daniel for approaching me with that idea, because I feel like that was a catalyst for a lot of the momentum that's happening, specifically with the combine discussion. But that's it in a nutshell for all I can say for right now with the combine.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how that unfolds. It's gonna be dope. So describe your childhood.
My childhood was a very unfortunate upbringing, extreme poverty, run-ins with CPS. My mom almost lost my brother and I at one point, just really bad living conditions. My mom was the youngest of 7 children, and when you have that many kids, by the time the last one is there, that kid's kind of left to fend for themselves. I'm not trying to make any excuses for anybody or for any circumstances that I was put into as a child, but the way that I see it is that an individual's trauma essentially can become their armor and their resilience for the rest of their world.
Yeah. And
that the people who have suffered the greatest, when you think of people that have gone through the Holocaust, even in those moments, they still learned how to live a fulfilling and happy and joyous life, and still found joy in even the darkest of times. And so, when I look back at my childhood and I, realize that things were really difficult, I can't speak for my brother, but I think he took it harder than then, between the two of us, he took it a lot harder than I did in growing up in such terrible conditions. It was a good learning experience in that it allowed me to be able to open my eyes to what I want to make sure my children didn't go through.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I didn't repeat. It didn't become a cycle that I then fell into. I learned how to rise above those obstacles and know that if I'm ever going to have children, they're never going to go through that situation in their lives. And so, so now I'm battling with, how do I make sure that my children aren't, taking the things that they have now for granted, right? How should I have them suffer a little bit so they can value what they have? And like, no. In parenthood, what I've learned the most is that my children are going to learn from example. They're going to follow in my behaviors and my patterns, and what I do, they are inevitably going to do. I can't proclaim or to start to create mandates and tell them this is how it's going to be, and then turn around and me not follow those same values or traits. That's just purely hypocritical. And so my childhood opened up my eyes to the way the world shouldn't be, and that children all over the world, I feel, suffer to varying degrees. And there's a long list that I'm sure your listeners and you yourself can relate to. There's certain things that children should not be subjected to. And so if as I journey through parenthood, and like my kids, maybe one day they'll be parents. If not, that's cool. I have no expectations for what their futures are going to hold. I want them to know that they have a support system, no matter what decisions they make and whether they succeed or fail. That they'll have their tribe, regardless of whatever that looks like. And I feel like that it's weird because I didn't have that as a child of a nuclear family, but I did have a tribe of friends and people who tried to support my mother as she was a single mom raising two kids. And I have a lot of gratitude for the village that was created inevitably from that. And whether my mom saw it that way or not, I did now as an adult looking back, that I don't hold my mom or my dad in contempt. In fact, I haven't met my dad as an adult male. I haven't seen him since I was 3 years old, and he's living in South Carolina. He's been deported to Mexico 3 or 4 times. He's been incarcerated for 5 years at one point for drug trafficking, and so I've got all these really unique situations that have happened in my life connected to my parents, and it's just, I don't look at any of that as a detriment to my well-being. I don't hold any contempt or pain or sadness or anguish. I look at it at face value and know that every individual in this world is going to suffer at some point. And my suffering is no unique and no more special and no more unique than anyone else's suffering. And that kind of commonality just helped me realize that, if I have any ambitions to use gaming as a catalyst for global good and helping the world find more camaraderie and connectivity and helping support one another, that feeling as though that my suffering deserves any more attention or any more special treatment than anyone else's is just absolutely absurd. And I would ask anyone else that is also going through severe trauma and severe suffering, is that you want to make the world better, it has to start at home. It has to start with the choices that we make at home and the way that we treat each other, the way we treat ourselves, the way we view ourselves. And it's unfortunate, but it's also fortunate at the same time that I went through such hardships as a child to bring me to where I am now as just super content. I'm a content human being, and no matter what situation that I'm in, and I try to live as joyfully as possible, because I know that is infectious, and that joy is going to bleed into other people's lives, and they're going to feel a bit of safety in that joy, like no matter how difficult things are. And so the military also builds on that resiliency as well. So I have a lot of gratitude for the service, because they really do break you down. And
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
when you get ready to go into basic training, and I know you can relate to this,
Yep.
they really break you down, but not for the purpose of like rebuilding you up into something that's just going to be a war machine. You know what I mean? Yeah, they're training you how to be a warrior, but they're training you how to be a mind warrior as well, on how to not look at your pain and suffering as a detriment, but rather as your growth, as a way for you to come back stronger and to come back more resilient. Because that resiliency is ultimately going to get us through the next hardship that is inevitable right around the corner, right? It's like only really 3% of the things that I actually want to have happen in my life are actually happening. Everything else is out of my control. So why would I get, why would I obsess about the things that don't go right in my life when there are things in my life that are going the way that I want them to? And that pattern, I feel like, increases as I look at the silver lining, and I look at the opportunity rather than the disproportionate unfortunate circumstances that happen in our life, right? Why suffer twice is what I tell people who I have this conversation with. If I go through something or somebody does some wrong to me, why am I going to dwell on that and suffer twice? Like, I don't want to go through unnecessary suffering more than I have to. So I try to forgive them almost immediately, or I try to disconnect, my feeling of being a victim. I realize that there's something going on in their world that is causing them to lash out and cause pain, and to actually feel pleasure in somebody else's pain. Like, that is a very traumatized human being that has probably gone through a lot of unimaginable shit that we haven't really fully understood.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a long answer for my childhood, but
it's a good answer.
Yeah, it's just like, what do we allow into our lives? We have a choice on that. What we allow into our lives when we become independent adults, and who and what we surround ourselves with really makes an impact. And what I would encourage everyone out there, that's hearing this, is just find your tribe, find your people that can be your support system. And they don't care what it looks like. They don't care. They're not holding any judgment. They're not holding any expectation. They see you and they value you for what you are able to do for yourself. And then inevitably it's going to branch out into doing good things to the people that you're connected with. So yeah, it starts at home, man.
So going off that, you mentioned that your brother took it harder than you. So what was the turning point for you where you were a victim of circumstances, and what was a key factor that changed it to you were a student of your circumstances?
I think within the past 10 years, I really looked back into my childhood and realized, like, wow, I can have a relationship with my father. I can reach out to him, talk. I actually thanked him for sending that gaming console back when I was a kid. I was like, you mailed us that gaming console, and that was a catalyst for where I'm at in my life today. Being connected to, the gaming world at such an early age, it allowed me to find a pattern of behaviors that allowed me to forget what my situations were for a little bit of time, and allow my creativity to really be at the forefront, right? I'd start to envision these worlds and be part of, these role-playing communities, and, be passionate about any gaming clubs that were going on in schools. Like, if I had not had a console, I'm sure gaming inevitably, people get exposed to it over time, but I feel like it was really over the past 10 years is when I realized that there were a lot of very interesting gurus and mystics that were out there sharing their wisdom and letting people know that intrinsically we have all this knowledge contained within. We've forgotten along the human pathway, the human timeline. And in order to really unlock all of that intuition that I feel like we all have, we're all empaths. We all have the ability to feel that someone else is going through something and going through some kind of trauma. I mean, you think to the holidays where people make jokes about their families not getting along or whatever, but, even when people aren't getting along, I try to find ways to diffuse that and bring back the commonalities. And that's when I learned that over the past 10 years, it was like getting out of the military and looking back and realize that like all of the things that I've gone through have really made me the person that I am. And so I look at all of that with humbleness and gratitude, and know that I would do it all over again if I could. Like even the bad things, like I would go through it all again if it meant that I was then going to come back an even more resilient person than I am now.
Mm-hmm. So, given your past, what was a memorable memory you've had that was a key lesson for you to help you build yourself?
I think it was all the time that I spent playing and having fun with friends. We would all drag in our old TVs, these old CRTs, and we would drag them into like an attic space upstairs, and there'd be like 4 Xboxes set up, and we were LANing up with some Halo. I remember connecting to Steam before Steam was its own, standalone game, like retailer, right? This marketplace that now exists. Steam was just this like client that you could connect to play multiplayer games in its early stages, and this is before I graduated high school, back in the late 90s. Those were really memorable experiences for me because that carried into the military. Like I was always trying to get these LAN things going. Like I as soon as I got in and I could afford it, I bought a laptop. I remember playing Doom on this sound system in the room, and it just sounded like a big old TV sound system. Everybody's out drinking at the bar, and I'm back in the barracks playing Doom and blowing things up. And and I would get complaints from people that are like, dude, it sounds like a horror movie over here. What's going on, man? And then I'd have people sitting behind me watching me play this game.
Yeah,
because it was so
cinematic.
So much,
awesome.
It was very cinematic. A lot of it felt like they were in a movie theater. And so those moments, they stay with me very much because there was a lot of connection, positive human connection, quality human connection that was happening there, and I think it's like I'm a big proponent of physical fitness. I think we should, as gamers, we should also be focused on our health and wellness, because a lot of these gamers are sitting most of the time, and so the physical fitness component helped me be a better gamer. It helped me be a better problem solver. And we have gamers out there that are live streaming and basically drinking and smoking and eating themselves to death.
Yeah, I know you gamers like that G Fuel, but drink water sometimes, damn it. God. Some of y'all don't drink water, and it shows. Come on, guys. You gotta be better than that. That's awesome, man. Thank you for sharing your background, man. That's dope. That's a hell of a character creation. So the next segment we're gonna get into is, with every character you create, there's always a set of attributes that you have. So I'm gonna name off some characteristic traits, and then you rate yourself from 1 to 5, 5 being the highest. You ready?
Shoot.
Grit.
Ooh, I would say that's a hard 7.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Why?
I'd say it's a hard 7.
I think you pretty much explained it. Yeah.
I'm warrior trained, man. I know how to use firearms. I don't take anybody's shit. Like but I don't fire back in a way where it's like, hey, let's knuckle up and go step outside. You know what I mean? I try to find the most effective way to try to diffuse a situation, but also letting people know that, I'm ready to handle it if that's what it's going to come to.
A good motto my drill sergeant would say is, learn to be a quiet professional.
There you go.
And I was like,
that's good advice.
Damn. And then, growing up and going through basic, I like, all right, I see what this guy's saying. That's awesome.
I mean, grit is something that I feel like is a learned trait. I feel like a lot of people can tune in to their fortitude and how they handle situations and how they behave as a professional. And I'm trying not to present hubris. I'm trying to be as humble as possible while trying to grade myself in this. But man, you put me on a range, man. I'm an expert marksman. I will light up that target. I'm just saying, man. If anybody wants to hit the range,
let's go. I'm down. Let's get it.
I'm your guy.
It's been a while since I had a Well, you can't have M4s, but AR-15 in my hands. I'm down. I'm ready. All right, curiosity.
Curiosity, I'd give that a lower score. I'd give that about a 5. I think my curiosity spans only as far as what intrinsically I haven't been able to figure out on my own. As much as I would like to say I'm a super curious person, my curiosity only extends to how much time I have in a day, and I'm just working all the time. So I mean, I feel like once you find your groove, you and this might be one of my failures, is that I need to be open to learning more and more and more and more. I never want to call myself an expert. As much as people out there want to go around calling themselves expert, I know that the climate, the environment, are like the marketplace, any job that you create for yourself or any organization that you're a part of, change is an inevitability. Technology is racing forward faster than our understanding, and we have to be able to adjust to that change that is always at the forefront of everything that we're doing. And so learning is inevitably going to follow behind that. And I think I should be a more curious person, and I don't think I am as much lately. I feel like I've settled into my groove and started to move down this path of tasks that I want to complete, when I feel like I should stop myself and tap into my curiosity a little bit more.
Social intelligence.
Social intelligence, I'd give myself maybe a 3. I miss a lot of social cues from people who don't want to be in certain situations. Like I'm a networker, I'm a marketer. I'll go out there, and if somebody wants to talk about the industry and they want to learn something, they ask me a question, more or less I'm giving them the long version of the answer rather than the short version.
Yeah.
And I don't pick up on their cues. They're looking at their watch
yeah.
Pete, thank you.
Are they like
thank
this?
You for this?
They're trying to leave.
Thank you for this lecture.
Yeah.
Pete, but I really only had 3 minutes, and we're now 30 minutes into this. So yeah, I don't score myself very high on social intelligence, just for that fact, because I will. You put me on stage at a speaking event, and I will run I'll totally run the clock, even though there's a guy in the background
let's
wrap it up,
go.
Cut it.
Gratitude.
Gratitude is a 5 for sure. I have so much gratitude for the place that I'm in, my family, my friends, all of the connections that I've made these past few years. I feel like gratitude would be one of the things that's kind of helping me feel like I'm in the right place and I'm doing the right thing.
Integrity,
5 for sure. When I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. I want to be impeccable with my word. I want people to know that they can rely on me. Like when they have a mission and I say I have a contribution that I want to add into that, I give it my full attention and my full heart, and that's a 5 for sure.
Loyalty,
oh man, I would give that a 4, only because my loyalty only goes as far as I feel as though my contribution is also being met by an equal contribution with all the other people that are a part of it. And I know that it's, without getting, into too many stories or backstories on that, I feel like you're only as good as your team. You can have the best idea in the world, but if you don't have the right team, then nothing's going to get done, or at least it's not going to get done to the standard that you really want to set for yourself. So I would give myself a 4 on that one, because I'm loyal to an extent, until I see that if there's an intentional self-sabotage, I'm like, well, I can't be loyal to somebody who's
is not loyal to themselves.
Bringing a hand grenade to the meeting every time we're trying to have a meeting, because it just kills productivity.
Yeah,
it kills productivity. And so I'm still kind. I still want to be courteous to those situations, but I know my limits, and I will ask people to no longer participate.
Patience,
I would give that a 3. I need more patience. Sometimes, even with my kids and my wife, I want to have more patience with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like my patience, and I think this comes from me overworking myself, and obviously we get tired.
Yeah.
If we're not, we're not hydrating, we're not eating, we're not sleeping, we're gonna get cranky. And like even with gaming, you go on a long gaming session, and even live streamers, you see them popping off. And while I don't think it's that bad, and I might be really scoring myself kind of low on this, I feel I have my wife would give me a 5 for sure. She would give me a 5 because I've been in a lot of really stressful situations, and everybody looks at me and like, Pete, you're just so level. What is going on, man? And you on drugs? Like, what's going on? This isn't bothering you? And I'm like, well, I just realize that it's not to my benefit by also suffering along with somebody else's tantrum or aberrant behavior or whatever might be going on. So yeah, I would score myself a 3 only because I want to be a better father and a better husband to my family. But and I think they would probably score me higher. At least I hope they would.
Confidence.
Confidence, 5, man. You put me in a situation where I need to deliver a message, or I need to see something get done. Like, there's nothing that's gonna stop me. I will, man. Even if I don't have the answer, I'm gonna provide the best service. I'm gonna give somebody the undivided attention. I'm gonna give them my heart. I'm gonna give them my passion, and my confidence definitely shines in those moments when something needs to get done, or I'm at an event and I need to get on stage and I need to talk and I need to exude some level of professionalism and let people know that, yeah, maybe this guy has an understanding of what the hell's going on in this gaming world. My confidence really comes through in those moments, and I just hope it doesn't come off as like arrogance or hubris. But I'm very confident in that. Like, this world is going to see really good things come out of the gaming world. I'm confident in that 100%. I feel like it will save the world.
Charisma.
Oh man, it's such a hard thing to try to score yourself. I would put that somewhat high. I would give it about a 4. Being a little self-critical there. However, I should probably knock that down a bit, only because my greatest charismatic attributes will probably come in the way that I communicate at these events and these like B2B type of expos, where I need to meet a lot of professionals and talk with them and be open to educating them. But I feel like in having good charisma, you also need to be a good listener.
Yes.
And I feel like that's where I need to improve, is I need to be able to stop and allow the parties that I'm connecting with a chance to be able to voice how they feel, like their opinion, their ideas. Because through listening, I feel like would level up my charisma even more, because I have all these things that I want to share and all these ideas and all of the visions that I have for the future, but that does nothing if I'm not getting feedback. Like, is this right for you? Is this what does this look like to you? Does that work for you? It doesn't. Why or why not? And I feel like that would level up somebody's charisma if they're willing to listen more than they're actually delivering a message.
Playfulness.
Oh, I'm super playful. That's a 5. Easy. Easy. Yeah, like someone pulls out a board game, somebody like wants to jump on, like, get a LAN event going. I'll jump on the mic, and I've got to be playful in order to get these guys get their enthusiasm going. You can't get on the microphone and just like,
the
round 1
monotone
team Foxtrot versus Team Delta. You're up next. Oh, you know what I'm saying? And doing commentary back in the day, when I was doing commentary for my own events and for other events in North and South America. I mean, you can't be deadpan, man. You've got to be enthusiastic.
Got to be in there.
Be playful. You've got to be fun.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not willing to engage people at that level, I mean, they're just going to tune out, and why would they even want to watch? But anyway,
stubbornness.
I would give that a 3. I would think that's pretty high for me because I can be really stubborn when it comes to like me wanting to accomplish something, and then my wife is pulling at me like, "Hey, like." She's sharing her intuition with me, and then I'm not listening to her intuition, and I just continue to drive forward and want to learn from my own mistakes. In that, I would call myself extremely stubborn, and that I want to go through the pain and suffering alone. I don't want somebody else sharing me the red flag, right? They're like, "Hey, I'm just trying to warn you. This is probably not a good direction to go in." I'm super stubborn in that, and that I will drive forward with a mission, even though everybody around me is telling me that it's like, "Hey, man, probably shouldn't go down that road." I'm not going to give any examples today, but let's just say that I would score myself probably like a 3 in terms of stubbornness.
Perspective.
Oh, perspective. Don't you wish we all had a bit more perspective, man? I would give myself probably a 4 on that one. I miss things at times and wish that, in hindsight, right? Hindsight's 2020. You want to look back and see that you have a better understanding of what's going on in your life. Everyone could use a bit more perspective, so I don't think anybody's a 5 at this one. I feel like perspective is a lifelong journey. It's not a destination. You're not going to reach some moment of like, holy shit, I'm fucking epic enlightened, and now somebody that can be a soothsayer and tell you what's going to happen in your future and know what's going to happen in mine. But I'm a pretty good guesser.
Aren't we all? All right. Logic.
Logic. I give myself a 3. I find myself extremely logical as a person, where I like to tie, I can string together a logical pattern of things. But I feel like where I could improve on that is actually implementing it in my own life. Right. I can understand a logic for somebody else's life when they come and sit down with me and I give them like a story or some kind of parable or something I've learned from like Sadhguru or any of these mystics or gurus that are out there, and they have all this wisdom to share. And they're like, "Oh, I heard this amazing like gem, this token of wisdom, and I want to share it with people. I want to share it with my friends." And then applying it to my own life, it's like completely fail. It's like we want to be those people in our lives, and then when we try to execute it in our own lives, I always feel like I come up short, and I feel like that's another one of those journeys, those life journeys that we go down, that inevitably we're gonna, we have to go through that. We come to that conclusion on our own at some point where it's like, okay, either I'm actually going to put into practice the things that I'm trying to say or give advice to other people, or I look like a hypocrite.
Self-awareness.
I'm very self-aware. I would give myself a 4 on that one. I would add that self-awareness comes with also being open to other people's opinions and views of you, because we're all one big happy family. You know what I mean? We're all the same. When you suffer, I suffer. You know what I mean? When something else is going wrong in the world, suffering in another part of the world, inevitably that's me suffering too. You know what I mean? Those are our human brothers and sisters out there that are going through hard times, and so I want to be aware of the human condition, and in that I feel like my self-awareness, because it's tied to my awareness that we're all connected, man. We're all stardust, as Carl Sagan said.
Stardust.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
We're all stardust, man. So I mean, we have a very big journey ahead of us as a human family, and my self-awareness begins there.
Critical thinking.
I'm a very critical thinker, but at times I feel burdened by that. I feel like my critical thinking can also be a detriment to myself, because then I become an overthinker, and then I don't trust my intuition as much. And so I give myself maybe a 3 on that one, because my critical thinking will often go into analysis paralysis. And like that's a tough thing to overcome. And again, I'm trying to be very critical. I'm trying to be very critical of like my scoring here on this one.
Yeah.
But in my strength is that I'm able to quickly list out all of the potential scenarios in a critical thinking exercise, and then what happens is I just spend way too much time analyzing all of those potentials and potentialities, right? And I would get in trouble with exams. I would always run the clock in exams, and they'd be like, "Pete, what are you doing?" And I'm writing out of the box. I'm writing into the bottom of the paper. I'm flipping over. I'm writing into the back of the page, and it's just like, calm down,
like, bro.
Truncate, right? Say in a very concise, get to the point in as few words as possible, because brevity is, again, when people learn how to communicate like this, people are less likely to tune you out, and they actually hear like those key messages, those key those key viewpoints that you want to share, essentially. So yeah, I'd give myself a 3.
Competitiveness.
I'm not very competitive.
Really?
In fact, I'd give myself a 2 in terms of competitive. Yeah, it's like I would intentionally throw games with friends, playing like first-person shooters or playing board games or card games, because I wanted them to have fun and I wanted them to play again.
Okay.
Because it's like when you try a tutorial for the first time in a video game and you play it for the first time and your friends just stomping you, but now they have these tutorials out where you win no matter what. You go into the game, it teaches you how to play, and you win. And you're like, oh yeah, you got all those feel-good hormones going in your brain. You're like, okay, now it's time to go to game 2. And I learned that was just a tactic, and it kind of came and moved into the marketing that I would do, is that I wanted everybody to believe that they had the potential to learn and be masters of their craft.
Yeah.
And if I was constantly going in and trying to just be the best, and like, I'm the greatest, I'm better than you and you and you, and if I just invited my friends over and I just stomped them every time we played video games together, eventually they wouldn't even want to play with me anymore.
Yeah.
And and so yeah, I would intentionally throw games and intentionally lose just so I would have a playmate. Like, I didn't want to play alone, I'd give them a game every once in a while. And, some people would be like, oh, well, that's deceptive. But, also at the same time, I'm appealing to the sensitive nature of people's need to have to feel like they've accomplished something. And I even see that with my kids now. If they don't win, they're just really hard on themselves. And me, when I don't win, I'm just like, time to go at it again. Time to go at it from a different angle, or let's pause and reassess. I'm willing to go through that critical thinking to try to figure out, what do I need to do to win the next game? What did I do in the previous game that I need to do in the next one? In a very, that's why I think I should be an esports coach. I really think I should, just because of the military background. I think you and I both, we could probably kick some ass in the coaching world. Only because human development, I feel like, is another latent passion of mine, in just helping people be the best human that they can be.
Of course. It's actually interesting. Okay, well, the next one is fairness. I feel like you've already answered that.
Yeah, I think I would score myself a 4 on that one. I feel like in the business world, you can't just give everything to everybody and expect, that you're just going to find inevitable success. You've got to get them salivating and get them hungry. So I'm an open book, but to an extent. I've done a lot of pro bono work, done a lot of volunteer services. Hell, I've gotten into the trenches with the homeless community and helped them out. But you're only one person. You can only do so much. And so that fairness has to extend to how you treat yourself as well. You got to be fair to yourself just as much as you're being fair with others. So, in the business world, you want to incentivize people, but at the same time, you don't want to stretch yourself to a point where, you're no longer able to take care of yourself. So I would give myself a 4. On that one. I'm a pretty fair human being. I tend to I compromise a lot, but I also do a lot for free.
Okay, last one. Luck.
I am not a lucky person at all. I don't think. Looking back at my childhood, looking back at, I feel like I would give myself a 3 on that one, only because luck is one of those things that, like, yeah, you can roll a die, but there's a probability scenario in that. So with that probability, luck's an illusion. You know what I mean? Luck is that circumstance, that if the cards are right, then yes, you're going to get this outcome. 1 + 1 is 2, right? But if I can't see the math that's happening, it doesn't mean it's not happening. It doesn't mean because I can't see, the light rays coming from the sun doesn't mean it's not happening. I'm not lucky to have the sun happening here. That's an inevitability of, the cosmos doing its thing. But yeah, wow, luck, how deep, right? And just by mentioning luck as a trait, I would like to think that I'm a lucky person, but I think I've gone through a lot of really weird scenarios that I feel has been tied to maybe a past life or something, because I've met so many I've met so many characters that are just, there's a lot of people out there that are all for themselves.
Yes.
And for whatever reason, I have the luck to attract those people in my life. And as a very altruistic person, I want to help everybody. I don't want to say no to anybody. I want to be like, yes, I want to help you. Like, you have a dream, I have a dream too. I want to help you fulfill your dream, because if you fulfill yours, then I fulfill mine. But if somebody is continuously self-sabotaging, there's nothing you can do for them anymore. Like, they've got to come to terms and come to that realization on their own. So yeah, my luck, I don't feel it's run out, but again, I feel like those were learning lessons for me, and I could use a little bit more luck in my life. I think everybody could.
Yeah, of course. Everybody can use a little bit more luck. Of course. All right, so we went over your character creation, and you've set yourself your own attributes. So now let's go on to your main quest, my friend. So what is something that you're working on right now?
Well, I'm working on a few things. I wear many hats. I participate in many activities. I'm working on producing events for a grocery store chain that has like 90-something locations throughout the U.S. called H Mart. You've been at one of the events in the past that we did with Guardian Gaming. That was a lot of fun. We had a massive turnout for that. So I'm still continuing to work on producing those events with H Mart. I'm also working on advising companies within the hotel industry, specifically with hospitality. So I'm working on helping get a mobile app that's a mobile concierge service that basically automates the entire hotel experience for people and clients that come in and stay at these hotels.
It's like an Airbnb?
No. Think Vegas. Hotels, they have all these events and foods and drinks, whatever that you can order, and imagine being able to do all of that from your phone, controlling your entire room, the temperature, the lighting, being able to order your towels, being able to order like this, get a space available at the spa, get a masseuse to your room, and you want to go see a show, but you don't want to pay full price. But if you wait long enough, your phone's telling you like, hey, there's seats available at a like 75% discount. So we're talking about reducing spoilage. We're talking about like eliminating the middleman, so the credit card companies get out of the way, and it's a direct payment from the customer to the hotel. It's an incredible app. It's called Lavender. I'm advising them right now, and I'm introducing them because I've been traveling to all different kinds of cities and met people who own hotels. I'm also a co-founder and a CMO for a family capital group based out of Park City, Utah, called O'Doomber Tree Capital, and they basically buy and acquire hotel real estate. And so that inevitably you meet lots of individuals who are either interested in owning a hotel or currently selling a hotel. So when you're surrounded by those circles, and you run into a mobile concierge service that wants to be placed in front of these hotels as a potential solutions provider, as a software solution provider, that was a real fortunate circumstance that came my way, because now, I mean, a lot of these things take time,
especially in the tech world.
Yeah, you can't just rush out and think you're going to make $1 million overnight, man. If you got a strategy, that sometimes takes 3 to 5 years before you even close on your first deal.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I would recommend to anybody who's interested in, kind of going down that route and being, a self-made entrepreneur or creating your own company or creating your own business is that, find the right team, find people who have a similar vision as you and are to execute on that vision, with as much passion that you have. They rise to your energy levels and trying to bring you down.
Mm-hmm.
Those are two things that I'm working on that have presented some unique opportunities for me. And I would say the last piece of it is that I'm trying to open up the gaming world to a lot of other markets, either within the political space or the influencer space, or getting sponsors linked up with events rights holders or the big influencers. And so I've got my hands tied into different companies and different individuals that just reach out to me and say, hey Pete, we need your help gaining access to this community. And that's a lot of what I've done for many years now.
So with every main quest there's always some side quests.
Absolutely.
So what are some side quests you're working on?
The side quests, self-development, just working on my own health and wellness, I think it should be my main quest. But again, it's like it's catch-22 in that if you're obsessed in your own personal development and just obsessed with your own, like what you eat, what, your sleeping patterns, it can be a detriment to yourself if you get to the point where it's all you're focused on, right? You've got to take everything in with balance. And so I think that's one of my personal side quests, is just working on my own mental health and wellness and my own ability to be the best father and best husband that I can be for my family, and helping the village really come up and be be as genuine to themselves as they possibly can be, so that they can then be a conduit for others. When my kids get older, right? And I want people to look at them as a source for compassion and understanding and resource for knowledge. And I think that's a side quest that I don't think I'll ever stop pursuing. Like that's something that kind of goes with you the whole way.
What's another side quest you're working on, or if any?
Let's see. The Esports Combine, working on that has been a pretty long side quest. That talking to different destinations to see, which one wants to park a combine inside the convention center, and finding the right partners to be kind of mixed in and also be solutions providers for the combine, because there's a lot of components to that, right? You've got to analyze the players, and then you've got to provide a one-sheet printout of all the data and the metrics that you're collecting on those players. You've got to incentivize it. You've got to monetize it. So what's the price point that people are going to buy in order to leave from a convention center with a one-page basically resume on their full capabilities as a competitive gamer? And so that requires getting a lot of partners layered in, because you've got to get the computers, you've got to get the power of the internet, right? You've got to be able to deliver the messaging in a clear, concise way on what it is that a combine for competitive gaming looks like, so that anybody who walks into these events knows what to expect and knows what to take away from it. So it's not always very easy, and being a good storyteller is where I think people do really well in this type of business, and sharing the full scope of what they're going to get from it. So yeah, that side quest is that one's going to be one cooking in the oven for a little while, but when it happens, it's going to be amazing, regardless if somebody else does it first, because I've been talking about it at different events, and I know I caught the ears of some of these, big wigs hanging out at these esports travel summits and, these different events that are happening all over the place. It catches their attention, and then, you look a couple months later and you see that they started doing it on their own, and then I'm like, well, good for you, because I'm going to be paying attention to you. I'm going to be very critical of how you're going about this. If you aren't actually being like a vanguard for the gaming world.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want people to co-opt this. Like, all the other industries have been co-opted to some degree, like Hollywood, the NFL, whatever. And this kind of goes into the discussion of like human trafficking and all of these, dark dealings that happen kind of behind the scenes that a lot of people don't know about. And I don't want esports to be anywhere near that stuff. We've had people in the esports world that have been caught in like pedophile rings and things like that. And so that's very real. That is out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got 2 children that are gaming, and I'm very glad that they are also anonymous when they're part of these gaming worlds, because it does include a lot of good people, but there's a lot of bad people out there too, and it's just the reality of the situation. The Olympic Committee, they've been talking about wanting to get esports involved, but that's one of the most corrupt organizations that are out there. I'll go on the record and say, like, we've had 4 different committee chairmen that have had to step down because of corruption. And if that's happening within the Olympic world, and it's very obvious, and there's tons of news publications that are going into more detail on what that level of corruption looks like. Esports, if that ever happened in the esports world, I'd be devastated, man. I would be devastated. I wouldn't want that happen to an industry that I've devoted so much time and energy to,
Mm-hmm.
just to have it be co-opted for nefarious purposes. Like that's one of my main prime directives, is to make sure that corruption and those entities stay as far away from the gaming world as possible. Like, this needs to be family friendly. This needs to be open to, doesn't matter where your background or where you come from, that the gaming world has a place for you. And that's kind of what I wanted that to wanted my main focus to be as I entered into this space professionally.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to make sure that people were aware, and I wear that on my sleeve, man. I'll go into these events and find out that like the NCAA or NACE trying to come in and take prize money from these these collegiate teams, and it just baffled me. And I get it. That's what the NCAA does. That's what they do. They like the college players, basketball and football, whatever. They don't get paid to play on those teams. But esports is different. Esports, you're entertaining a global crowd. You're devoting a lot of time and a lot of energy into developing this. And frankly, you don't need college in order to become a pro esports player. In fact, I would say most colleges out there don't even have a proper esports curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you were to try to develop an esports syllabus for a semester, like, I can only think of a very small handful of people, very small group of people who could actually develop a curriculum that I would fully support and back, that was proposed as an esports program at the collegiate level. Because frankly, and I think there's some other people out there that would agree with me on this, is that you want to go pro as a gamer, you don't need college to do it. Because right now the colleges are falling behind, right? The colleges are looking to people like us in order to be educated on how they would do it for, like the next generation or the generation
Mm-hmm.
after that, on how to do it. And so I feel like taking prize money from such an industry that's so young, and taking it from the players, try to promise them training facilities and promise them access and promise them sponsors and all that other, like, this is kind of getting into the more dramatic side of what happens within the collegiate world and these higher institutions that try to come in and exert authority over these players. I just don't think it's time. I think the timing is way too premature for organizations to try to come in and flex their access that they have to traditional sports and claim that they can do that for esports. It's not a one-to-one comparison on that. Yeah, not yet. Anyway, not yet. We're just not there. We're not selling 17 million stadium tickets like the NFL is here in North America. You could say that that's happening in Asia and Europe, and but we're nowhere close to selling as many tickets as the NFL does for football games here in the U.S. for esports events. So I mean, anyway, I could come up with a lot of reasons.
Man. All right, so with every main quest is always a final boss. So what is your final boss you wish to conquer in your main quest?
Oh, the final boss. I feel like that's the dark version of myself. I feel like that's, the person that if I were to just take the easy road and just cheat and steal and lie and I feel like that's the thing that I'm battling the most is like, man, I could take the easy road. Man, I could, there's a fine line between what is beautiful and what is horrifying. And I feel like we all have that within ourselves. And the final boss is going to be, the opposite of what I am, because it's always looming there, right? We make that conscious choice every day when we get up in the morning. Like, are we going to treat ourselves good? Or are we going to be hard on ourselves and be full of self-doubt and misery and like self-pity and self-loathing? And I think that's my final boss. I think that's what I've been combating my whole life, is trying to not be the person that, would, going back to like what my childhood was, to make sure that is not a future that any child whatsoever should ever go through. And so that's it. That's the final boss for me, man, is my complete opposite. You got the angel and the devil, and having to, and you having to be able to, keep that out of your periphery. Right? You don't want that to enter into your life at all. And so I feel like everybody battles that every day, to some degree.
Yeah. So say you conquer your final boss and it hits game over. What is a legacy or impact you wish to leave when somebody opens up your save file?
Man, if somebody opened up my save file, I would want them to see that. I would want them to see just pure joy. I'd want them to open up the save file and just be able to smile and feel that my accomplishments were also their accomplishments, right? I don't do this for myself. I pride myself on being a very selfless person in that I want to be of service to others. I know that through being of service, I don't need to have all the answers. Hell, I don't even need to be the best at what I do. But if I give the best possible service and give people the attention that they deserve and treat them like quality human interaction, that's what I want in my save file more than anything else. Man, I want people to open that up and feel inspired to treat themselves good, because through that's going to allow the world to heal much faster.
That's a good answer, my friend. Last question. Where can people find you?
So people can find me in a few places. LinkedIn's a big one. That's where I connect with a lot of the folks in the professional world. You can find me, Peter Perez, LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter. I've changed my handle. It's now Warrior Pete on Twitter. And then on Instagram, I think it's still RBE Pete on Twitter or on Instagram. I don't know if I've changed that one.
I'll be sure to put the links in the description and everything, so everybody can find you.
Yeah,
Stay up to date with you.
Appreciate that. Yeah, social media is such a strange place because I don't like to spend time on social media. I've really grown to not like Facebook, and I'm not one of those people that likes to dwell very much on the things that I don't like. I like to be in like the positive spectrum, right? I like to be like, these are the things that I love.
Yeah.
But I think we have to be honest with ourselves that social media has turned into like something monster.
Yeah,
all on its own. Like my kids are plugged into it. I have some aversion to it, other than creating events. When I create an event, I want the page, that event page. I want all the data, I want all the information. I want to look at that page as if I was attending the event. I want all the answers available for me so I know what the experience is like. So social media is great in that. And whenever we do events, that's a great tool. to get the data points out there so people can sign up and play and come out and be a part of the event.
So if somebody wants to reach out to you, what's the best method of contact for you then?
Oh, the best way is just shoot me an email. Yeah.
What's the email?
Or rbe.pete@outlook.com. That is my personal email. I try to use that more than the business emails unless it's specifically tied to business.
Okay.
So I have those business emails out there, but then I would just move those conversations to those business emails if if that's what somebody would, they want to talk hotel real estate, or they want to talk combine, or they want to talk consulting, they need a consultant or something, and then we would switch over to those. But I like to keep my personal email up for now and let people know that, hey man, they've got a problem going on with them in the esports world and they need somebody to just vent to. I'm more than happy to be that person that they're like, hey man, I went through some shit at this event and it was terrible. I don't need you to do anything, but I just want to tell you I had a horrible time. Okay, hey man, tell me how you feel. Tell me how you really feel.
Tell me how you really feel. All right, Pete, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, man. It was a pleasure for you to be in here. Of course.
Yeah, I appreciate being a part of it. I am very much looking forward to seeing your podcast grow and keep doing this. Keep shining bright lights, my friend. You're a beacon of positivity, so keep it going.
Thank you so much. Well, guys, there you have it. Mr. Peter Perez. I said in the beginning, a vanguard of esports. Basically, it turns out just everybody in life. So like he said, if you guys are going through any questions, concerns, anything you guys got going on, this man's an open book. He gave you what you needed to reach out to him. Again, thank you again, Pete. It's your boy, Gold Lion. Stay happy, stay healthy, and most of all, gamers, stay golden.